PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
She just goes a little mad sometimes.
Do you ever feel like you're normal and the rest of the world has lost its collective mind?
Put your helmet on. We'll be reaching speeds of 3.
Do you find people saying this to you a lot?
Are you totally deranged?
Are you looking for a looking glass to pass through?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Or looking for a rabbit hole to fall down?
Who could think of a better punishment, really? Everything's the same here, it's just a little worse.
Guess what?
Life's a bitch. Now so am I.
You found it. Welcome to Platinum Rose's Garden.
Hello, my darlings. This is Platinum Rose Lady welcoming you to Platinum Rose's Garden on Sunday, March 24th, 2019. Sorry to be a day late. We had some nice personal stuff to do yesterday, party for a family member, and so I was a little late. I figured you guys would understand. Obviously, what we need to talk about is the 800-pound gorilla in the middle of the room. On Friday afternoon, it was announced by Jared Padalecki, Jensen Ackles, and Misha Collins in a post that was released to social media that season 15 will be the last season of Supernatural. They've always, the CW has always said that Supernatural would last as long as the cast, meaning Jared and Jensen and also Misha, I guess, wanted the show to go on. So apparently they've all decided that season 15 is where it's going to end. Season 15 will be another 20-episode season. And, I told myself that I was going to be real total professional about this. And I found out about this actually before I saw anything, on the internet. My husband called me and told me, and, because he was like, I want you to hear about this from me before you see it online. Probably because he figured if I waited and saw it online and then contacted him, I would be screaming hysterically into the phone or something to that effect. The second he told me that, I had something I wanted to tell you, my heart instantly dropped into my stomach because I'm thinking somebody's died. That's the first thing that went through my mind. Somebody has died. When he told me what was going on, that it had been announced, that Supernatural was ending, my heart didn't drop any lower, but it still stayed in my stomach. I've been thinking about this a lot over the past couple of days, and I've seen a lot of people talk online, and I've spoken with people online, and I've had some people say some lovely things to me, including my friend Anthony. Anthony, you rock. You're a great guy. Thank you for thinking of those of us who are Supernatural fans and spreading us some love over Twitter. You're a righteous dude. And I am sad. I'm sad, but at the same time, I'm not sad. If that makes any sense. Will I be sorry to see Supernatural end? Of course I will. Will I be sorry to see Supernatural end if it ends with Sam and Dean, dying or something like that? Yes, I definitely will, unless we see them in heaven and they're reunited with all their friends and everything's great, then I would be happy. I would be crying and sobbing and probably, cry till I puked, but I'd still be happy. I'm trying to look at it from My friend Jen would be so proud of me. And all my Star Trek friends would be proud of me because I'm trying to be logical. I'm trying to channel my inner Spock and not channel my inner Warzy, who's still crying about Luke dying at the end of the last Star Wars movie. We know that this show is loved by a lot of people, including the people who are involved with the show. I mean, you could see it on Jared and Jensen and Misha's faces. They, that this was hard to tell us. I mean, Jared looked like he was going to burst into tears the entire time. And I'm not saying that, you guys know I'm not saying that in a way like, ha ha, look at a big guy, he's crying. I definitely don't feel that way, because I definitely feel like people should express their emotions and express how they feel, because that keeps you from having stress and stuff like that. And I mean, all I wanted to do was give Jared and Jensen and Misha all like big, enormous hugs. And not like hugs like, oh, I love you, I think you're sexy. I wanted to give them hugs because they're people. And it hurt them to tell us this. And I don't like to see people hurt, especially people that I care about. And I care about these guys, and I care about you guys a lot. So, I know that you're all really sad that Supernatural is going to be ending next season, but there's some things you have to think about. And really, let's think about this. Let's all put on our blue Federation shirt and style our hair just so, and think like Spock. Let's all think like Spock for a minute. Let's be logical. Supernatural has been around for what will be 15 seasons. Right now, this second, as I'm saying this to you and just bonked my hand off the desk, it is season 14. We still have the rest of season 14 to look forward to, and we have season 15 to look forward to. Yes, we now know that season 15 will be the last season. That does not mean the story has to end. Please look at it this way. Star Trek, the original Star Trek, ended its run back before most of you guys were born. Not some of you, but not, I won't mention who, but people still love to write about Star Trek. People still write professionally written books that you can, hike your little butt to Barnes and Noble to buy about Star Trek, the original series. People haven't forgotten Star Trek, the original series, because they still love it. They keep that flame alive. And as long as there is one person out there that remembers Supernatural, and they don't even have to have seen it for the first time. If you show your kids Supernatural and your kids show their kids Supernatural, that flame is never gonna die. And we're always going to remember characters like Sam and Dean and Cass and John and Mary and, characters that didn't, and characters that are gone and we miss, like Bobby, or characters that didn't have as much of, we don't see them as much, but, were really important, like Kevin or Garth, or, characters like that. They're always going to be around, and we're always going to have them in our hearts and in our minds and in our souls, and we're always going to have the friends that we've made through Supernatural. I have met some amazing, beautiful people that I am honored to call my friends. My close friend Katie, who is a wonderful person. I would have never met her probably if it wasn't for Supernatural. And all the people I've met through my writing. The fact that I got to go to a convention that was all Supernatural writers that I had such a great time at. And that I got to not cosplay, but I got to read lines as Crowley, so I got to play Crowley. That was really awesome. The fact that I got to go to a Supernatural convention and I got to get a hug from Jared Padalecki because I made an incredibly inappropriate comment that he started. Look up the whole cocksock thing sometime on YouTube. The woman asking that question, yeah, hi, that's me. I have to say, Jared, when Jared Padalecki hugs you, you have been hugged. He is really warm and smells incredibly amazing. Sorry. Genevieve, you are a very lucky lady. And Danielle is a very lucky lady, and Vicky is a very lucky lady. Everybody's a lucky person who knows these guys, because they're all amazing people. So I know you're sad, and there's a saying that I don't know who said it, because this has been credited to 50 kabillion people, from Dr. Seuss onward, and I don't know who said it originally, but I know I wasn't smart enough to come up with it. There's a saying that says, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. And I realized some people just rolled their eyes and went, oh, that's so trite, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it is trite. And actually kind of telling you guys, don't cry, don't be sad, don't let anybody diminish your feelings like that. And don't let anybody be like, oh, it's just a show. I mean, if you feel that upset that Supernatural's ending, that you're contemplating hurting yourself, please talk to somebody. Call somebody. Because nobody wants anybody to get hurt. Please, please, please. I am not effing around right now. I'm serious about this. If this is something that's just added on to a really tough time you're having, and you're worried that you're going to harm yourself, please call somebody. Because, believe me, Jared and Jensen and Misha and all the people from this show, they would never want you to do that. And I don't want you to do that. And they're all going to go on and have great jobs and great careers and stuff like that. And they want you to be around to see that and enjoy that, because I really want Jared Padalecki to be the next Tarzan, and I want Jensen Ackles to play the Phantom Stranger. And I would be really happy if Misha Collins played something else where he doesn't have to wear a trench coat. I don't know what yet, but I'm definitely going to try and think of something. Seriously, can't you see Jared as Tarzan? Would that not kick butt? That would be so awesome, and they'd actually have a Tarzan movie that made money. Wouldn't that be amazing? But there's that quote, and it's an okay quote. I like it, but there's one quote that I think is even more appropriate for Supernatural, and I want you guys to hold on to this. Write it down if you want to. Again, I am not smart enough that I came up with this. I won't even attempt to say I'm not smart. It's a quote from Avengers Age of Ultron. Yes, I'm quoting a superhero movie because I am a big fat nerd. Woohoo! In case you couldn't figure that out. A line Vision had stuck in my head when I found out about Supernatural ending. A thing isn't beautiful because it lasts. Think about that. And think about this. Supernatural is going to be around when it ends for 15 seasons. 15 seasons. That is longer than Star Trek. That is longer than Star Trek The Next Generation. That is longer than Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That is longer than Smallville. It is the longest running American science fiction fantasy horror series ever. And nobody and nothing will ever take that away from us. And we will always keep Supernatural alive in our hearts, in our writing, in just telling people about the show, including in people about the show who've never seen it. It's not going to end. It's never going to really be over. Just remember that. And remember something else. We've all got each other. And there's always going to be somebody out there that'll hold your hand. That'll take your hand in the dark and tell you it's going to be okay. And, if you ever need that someone to be me, platinumroselle@yahoo.com. Give me a shout. I'll be the first one to slip on a pair of clown shoes and a funny nose and play Lady of Spain on the kazoo if that'll cheer you up. I'm just here to be a fool, I guess. So, now that we've got that out of the way, let's deal with the fact that we are still dealing with season 14 of Supernatural, and that's what this week's Supernatural episode recap is going to be about. So, hold on.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to
Season 14, Episode 16 of Supernatural, Don't Go in the Woods. We begin the episode with the then segment, and the then is dealing not only with the monsters that have shown up on Supernatural over the years, but also with the trio of kids from Lebanon, Kansas, who know now that there are monsters out there and know that people are out there that kill them, being the Winchesters. And also the kid with the Bambi eyes, Jack. The young people involved in this little trio are Max and Stacy, who are a young couple, and their friend Elliot. And also we're dealing with, in the then segment, we're dealing with Jack. And the fact that he, managed to kill Michael, absorb Michael's grace, is now fully powered, but we don't know how much of Jack's soul was destroyed when he killed Michael and absorbed his grace. And we see Donatello talking about that they should keep an eye on Jack. He seems okay, and Jack himself says he doesn't know how much of his soul is gone and that he feels different. And now we are at Now. And Now is in a state park, which is outside of Polk City, Iowa. We see a couple in a car, a young couple. The girl's name is Barbara and the young man's name is Tom. And they're doing what kids do naturally. They're making out in the woods because apparently nobody's ever seen a slasher movie. The thing is, as they're making out, they wind up being interrupted because they hear kind of this strange noise outside, and then they also hear something really odd, which is, it sounds like somebody whistling. And this is all freaking Barbara out. And Tom keeps telling her that it's just the wind, but she's obviously, he's not going to get any while she's this weirded out, so he's going to go check what's going on. All of a sudden, the door of the car opens, and it turns out that it's the cops. Specifically, it's the local sheriff, a man named Mason Romero, who, as it turns out, is Tom's father. Awkward. From the sound of it, Tom and his father don't really get along very well, possibly because Tom's parents, from the sound of it, are divorced. His mother is away with her boyfriend. And while Tom and his father are arguing, Barbara says she needs to go use the restroom. And there's a nearby restroom, it's a campground, so there's like a place where people can, use a facility. It's not the cleanest facility I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen worse. I think we've all had to use that bathroom at a gas station. It's not quite that bad, but it's close. She manages to find a stall that's clean enough, and while she's in there, she starts hearing that whistling again, she hears this sound like somebody coming in the room, but it's almost like they're walking, almost like they're not like they're dragging something, but like they're weighted down with something while they're walking. And this hand appears over the top of the door of the stall, and it's not a very, nice looking hand. It's not a very well manicured hand or anything like that. Granted, it doesn't look like Michael Myers from the most recent Halloween movie, but it's definitely actually scarier than Michael is. She starts to scream because whatever this is trying to get in, and her screams wind up alerting the sheriff and Tom that something's wrong. They go running to see what's happened, and they don't find, she's not in the bathroom. The sheriff runs out into the woods. He thinks he sees a person in the woods, but he winds up slipping and striking his head. He hears Tom yelling, and he runs to where he finds Tom, who is kneeling on the ground, crying over the body of Barbara, who has been mutilated. There's this enormous bite on her neck, and she's very obviously dead. So we cut to the opening credits, and then we are at the Batcave, and we see Sam at a computer in a room that's not the main room where they usually do all the research and stuff like that, the big lit up table and all that, because you can tell that Sam is still dealing with his guilt from the fact that all those hunters from the apocalypse world died because of Michael's rampage, and that, poor Maggie died right in front of Sam, and Sam's still taking responsibility for that and feeling really guilty about that. And I'm sitting there going, you don't have to, you poor darling. It's not your fault. Hashtag loyal Sam is on. Dean comes in and makes a couple of jokes about porn and stuff like that, which Sam's all like, there's more on the internet than porn, and Dean's basically like, not on my internet. So I guess, Dean would be a big fan of that song from Avenue Q, The Internet is for Porn, I guess. But, Sam winds up finding out about, Barbara's death from a, website talking about, stuff in the area, I guess. And he finds out that there have been a lot of people that have gone missing in these woods. They haven't found a lot of bodies. People have just gone missing. And we're talking up in the areas of the 50s number of people, 50-something number of people. And that's disturbing, obviously. So they decide they're going to go check this out. Sam goes to find Castiel to tell him they're going, and Dean tells him that Castiel's not there, that he's decided that he needs some time away from the bunker as well. And since Sam just can't, blip off to Tahiti or whatever, it's just going to be the two of them. Because when Sam suggests that they take Jack along, Dean's like, no. He doesn't want to take Jack because he's concerned about the fact that Jack has his powers back, and Jack is, they like I said, they don't know how much of his soul has been burned away, and they're just concerned about the fact that now that his powers are back, and he does seem a little bit not the same as he was before. We don't know if Castiel told Sam and Dean about Jack killing the snake. We're never told if that happened or not. I think probably knowing Cass, he didn't. They go tell Jack that they're going to be going, and Jack's going to go with them and all that, but they say no, that they don't want him to come along, because even though Sam's all ready to tell them why they don't want him to come along, because he thinks that that's, honesty, good idea, Dean's whole thing is that he'd rather Jack stay and keep an eye on the bunker in case Mom comes back or any hunters show up that might need some help. And also that the bunker needs supplies, so Dean gives Jack a list of things to go buy at the store. And, Jack's a little bit like, you want me to go shopping? And he's just kind of, the really isn't there, but it's kind of implied. But then he's all kind of like bright and smiley about it and like, okay, and I'm like, I really hope that you guys know what you're doing with this. So Sam and Dean head off to Iowa in their Fed suits, and they interview Sheriff Romero, who puts the blame, of what happened to Barbara on coyotes. Although I don't really think a coyote would have done that kind of damage to a human being, but apparently he's hoping Sam and Dean will buy that, but they don't. Sam and Dean examine Barbara's remains, and the thing is, they both notice that the bite on her neck, the skin around the bite, first of all, you find me a coyote with a bite radius like that, and that's a big coyote. The skin around the edges of the bite, it looks like it's been burned, which is an odd thing to have in something like that. It's a very strange situation. Jack heads off to town, and he winds up meeting up with Elliot, Max, and Stacy. When we see them, Elliot is watching he's watching his phone and watching a video of the Ghost Facers. So apparently, Elliot has no taste in monster hunters, because those guys are a couple of, I really wish I hadn't give up swearing for Lent. And they talk with Jack, and he's being friendly with them back, and they wind up going into they wind up finding out that, Jack, when they talk with him, Jack finds out that they know about, monsters and stuff like that. And he's relieved that they know, because he doesn't like lying to people. So we cut back to Iowa, and Tom is really full of guilt about Barbara's death. He wants to talk to Barbara's parents, and the sheriff's all like, no, I don't want you to do that. They're in mourning. I mean, he's definitely trying to do the right thing by his son. He does, cause I mean, if his son shows up at these people's door and is like, yeah, sorry, I was out with your daughter and she died, somebody's gonna wind up saying something they shouldn't, and some, more feelings are gonna get hurt, and we don't need that. And so, cutting back to the store in Kansas, Jack is shopping for, what he's supposed to be getting, and it turns out that Stacy must work for the store because she's got keys. And she and Max are talking about Jack, and they're saying how they feel sorry for him because, he lives with, a bunch of other dudes, and it's basically, it must, basically they make it sound like, it's really disgusting to live just with men, and, Elliot's a total fanboy about this whole thing about monsters and that the monsters are real and stuff. And he's asking Jack about stuff, and Jack's being honest with him. Zombies aren't real the way people think they're real, but other things are real. And he starts rattling off all these other monsters out there that are real. And Elliot's eyes are getting wider and wider and wider. And he's all like, can I be your best friend? I'm like, good grief, kid. Have a little backbone there, buddy. The girls invite Jack to a farmhouse that they're going to go to where they go to study and such. And sorry, I had to take a drink. Jack's all, paying for the food. The really funny part is when they're asking him how old he is, and he, first he says just, cause he can't think of anything else, and starts bringing up that he's 2, and then he's 22, 22. I'm like, honey, you're really bad at this. I was really like, wow. The problem is when they ask for ID for the beer, and he doesn't have any ID because he's 2 years old, really. And so we cut back to Iowa where, Sam's been doing some research, and what he finds out is that he thinks what they're dealing with is a beast from Native American mythos called a Kohonta, which is a creature that's kind of like a Wendigo. It eats human beings. The actual stuff he was reading said that it, quote, craves sweet mortal flesh, end quote. Ugh. The fact that the burns that were on Barbara's corpse were caused by the fact that this creature is always hungry. It always is craving meat, and it's so hungry that if it doesn't eat after, within a certain, time period or whatever, it starts to vomit up its own stomach acid. Ugh. That's really horrible. We cut to that evening, and we see a couple out, they're out hiking, a man and a woman, and they're out hiking in the dark. That seems really safe. And they hear this whistling sound, and they see this thing in the woods that is clearly A, not human looking, and B, not friendly looking, and they wind up running from it, but the man winds up tripping and falling to the ground, and this creature is on him faster than you can say, oh my gosh, please don't eat me. And there's this, now we know it's stomach acid, coming out of its mouth, and it splashes the guy in the face, and he starts screaming because it burns. And I guess I'm kind of like, well, at least that's distracting you from what's coming next, because what's coming next is dang it, a whole bunch of teeth. So we cut to the next morning, And we see Sheriff Romero, and we can definitely tell that he knows something. He knows something about what's going on, and he's arguing with his son about what needs to happen and what, they need to find this coyote, and like the son wants to help, and the father's all like, no. And one of the deputies comes in and says, something else has happened. So the sheriff heads out to the woods, where we've got, people out there searching the woods, and we've also got people there dealing with the other hiker, the lady hiker who didn't wind up becoming, food for this monster. And Sam and Dean are there questioning her, and they find out they find out that where these people were was near what was referred to as the Parker cabin, the old Parker cabin. And so the sheriff shows up, and the sheriff tells all the other deputies and all the people there searching, go, leave. The search has been called off. His whole thing is that he's saying that he doesn't want anybody out there, he doesn't want anybody else out there getting hurt trying to deal with a rabid coyote. That was in Dr. Evil quotes. But he's saying that nobody else should go in the woods. And Sam and Dean are like, oh yeah, we're totally going to listen to him. You can totally tell they're not going to listen to him. Back at the farmhouse where the kids are, Stacy and Max are studying for their SATs, and Elliot is reading a whole bunch of books about monsters. And Jack shows up, bringing with him a whole bunch of books that look like they probably came from the Men of Letters library. I'm like, Jack, what the? I'm like, okay, calm down. He's not your kid. It's not your place to lecture. But I'm sitting there going, the fingers are starting to wag. I'm like, oh gosh, my finger's doing the finger wagging thing that your mom does to you when you're doing something wrong. Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh man, seriously, how do parents do this? It's completely insane. So Jack asks about the music they're listening to, and he mentions that he likes The Who, and the other kids are kind of dismissive of his music, his musical tastes. He brings up that that Dean says that music. I'm trying to remember what the line was now. That any music made after 1979 sucks ass. Dean? Okay. Look, I love Dean. Don't get me wrong. I do love Dean. He's a great character, and he's a really wonderful, brave person, and has a great taste in music. But I'm sorry, there's a hell of a lot of music that came out after 1979 that's really frickin' awesome. 2 frickin' words, November Rain. I'm sorry. Guns N' Roses, please. I'm sorry. Seriously. Max then remarks that Dean, the reason Dean likes music like that is because Dean is old. Oh, I want to smack you upside the head. They start talking, Elliot leads the conversation more into stuff about, what monsters are like, and Elliot asks Jack about what demons look like. And, because of pictures that he's seen in one of these books where there's, one of these old wood cuttings of demons with the horns and all that stuff. And Jack explains to him and to the girls that demons don't look like that most of the time they look like smoke unless they possess someone, and then they can look like anybody. And, oh, by the way, he mentions that he killed a demon. And when they're like, how, Jack's all excited to show them how when he shows them his angel blade. And he's, showing them the moves that he's been taught, how to stab and thrust and parry and all that. And then decides to show that you can also use it, but, you could use it as a throwing weapon, and winds up throwing it at a tree and misses. I'm like, yep, somebody missed their dex check. And yes, I just made a Dungeons and Dragons joke. I am a nerd. I admit it. I don't care. we cut back to the forest at night where we see Sam and Dean searching through the woods. Dean is definitely of the opinion that the sheriff knows more than he's letting on. They wind up hearing this whistling noise, and the sheriff finds them in the woods. You know, he's behind Sam, draws his gun on, Dean, and draws his gun on him. No, it is Sam, I'm sorry. And, he wants to know, what they're doing there and stuff like that. No, it is Dean. And Dean, says asks him if he knows what a kahunta is, and the sheriff denies it, and he threatens that he's going to arrest them, but there winds up being a quick scuffle, and the Winchesters get the drop on the sheriff. Jack, because he's still throwing, he's been throwing the angel blade at the tree, and it's still not, going as well as he'd like, and he's trying to not, he's trying to do what kids do. He's trying to blend in with his peers. He's trying to impress his peers. He winds up using his powers to hit the target, and using his powers to pull the angel blade out of the tree, and starts moving it around in the air with his mind, and his eyes are glowing, and at first the kids are really impressed. The thing is, as he's still doing this, zipping zipping and zooming the angel blade around, you can tell he's getting thrilled by the fact that they're really impressed by what he's doing. And it's almost, it's that kind of exhilaration when you do something really well that you want to show off more. It's a very typical kind of a trait. And the thing is, the kids, are going from, oh gosh, this is really impressive, to realizing, oh wait a minute, this guy's waving around a really sharp knife in front of us, and it's going faster and faster, and they're really getting scared, and I really kind of don't blame them. And when they're yelling at Jack to please stop, he doesn't. And the thing is, Stacy winds up, she looks like she's trying to run away from him, or run, just get away from the blade. She winds up, unfortunately, stepping in front of it, and winds up getting stabbed by the blade in her stomach. And she obviously falls to the ground. There's blood everywhere. Stacy's freaking out. Max is freaking out. Elliot's calling 911. Jack says he can fix this, pulls the blade out of Stacy's stomach, and uses his powers to heal her. Needless to say, it works. She lifts up her shirt. There's no mark there. There's still blood there from the fact that she was bleeding before, but there's no knife wound there. There's not even a scar. There's nothing. But, the problem is that now it's not fun anymore. Now these kids realize that this power that Jack has is something that's kind of dangerous if he doesn't control it, and they don't really seem to be very sure, A, he can control it, or B, what happened was an accident. Stacy and Max run away, and Elliot tells Jack to never come around them again. And Jack's left standing there all by himself and looks so incredibly hurt, and I just wanted to take him in my arms and hold him and tell him it's okay. You made a mistake, but you fixed it. It's all right. I realize I'm giving Jack a lot of leeway there because I just do. Sorry. Dean and Sam wind up telling the sheriff about hunting, the fact that there are things out there, awful things like werewolves and, things like the kahunta and things like that. The thing is, it turns out that the sheriff actually did see the kahunta before and recognized what it was, but he thought that whole thing was just a myth from his people, kind of like a boogeyman kind of story. As it turns out, the kahunta isn't a monster. in the traditional sense of a monster, something born of monsters, that kind of a deal. As it turns out, it was a human being. He tells them the story of the Kahunta, which is actually a really tragic story, and it has to do with the Parker cabin, that there was a family of Caucasian settlers that had came to the area to start a life. They were one of the first white people to settle in the area. And from the sound of it, it doesn't sound like there were any issues between the white people and the Native Americans at first. But the problem was that there was a very, very long, very harsh winter, and the eldest son of the family, a man named Henry Parker, something went really, really wrong. From the sound of it, the family might have been snowbound or whatever, and they couldn't get enough food, or they ran out of food, or whatever happened. But the bottom line of what happened was that Henry Parker committed one of the deepest, darkest, most evil sins that a person can commit in most cultures. He killed his family and ate them to survive. And because he did this, he went crazy, and he wound up attacking the tribe of Native Americans that lived nearby. Once the winter was over, he just had this constant craving for human flesh, which we all know about from another monster, the Wendigo. That's how Wendigos are created, a human being who commits one of the, like I said, cannibalism is one of the ultimate sins in most cultures. And especially, a lot of Native Americans, that's how they believe a Wendigo is created, by a person eating another human being. The thing is, before he could become a Wendigo, he was captured by the Native Americans, and they cursed him. They put this incredibly horrible curse on him to become a Kahunta. The thing is, the way a Kahunta is different from a Wendigo is the fact that if they don't eat human beings, their body will start eating itself. That's what the whole stomach acid thing is about. And the curse also bound him to this forest area, and there were marks that the Native Americans put on the trees to keep the Kahunta trapped in one specific area. It's bound to that one area, can't leave. And also, I would assume that the marks would be on the trees so that Native American people, and probably certain white people that they told that they felt they could trust, would know, stay away from this area. This is where the Kahunta does its hunting. But the problem is the same thing that happens with, time. After time, it's like the whole thing from which was the Lord, Fellowship of the Ring, legend became myth and all that stuff like that. The story of the Kahunta and the story of the marked trees and all that stuff, it faded into myth. It faded into, people forgot about that kind of stuff after a long time. The sheriff also brings up that, people, his whole thing is, if Sam and Dean and other hunters know about the fact that monsters are real, shouldn't they tell other people? Shouldn't society be made aware of this so that people can defend themselves? And you can kind of see Sam almost kind of thinking about it, but he and Dean both are kind of like, no. People get killed. People who don't know the truth and don't know how to hunt these things, they wind up getting killed. Even people who do know what they're doing wind up getting killed. And also the fact that, as Dean brings up, if you put on YouTube, this is an actual footage of a vampire and we're not screwing with you, you'd still have people out there who wouldn't believe. I mean, what's that line from The Usual Suspects? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people he didn't exist. It's like that's what monsters rely on, that people don't believe that there's things like monsters and demons and the devil and stuff like that. But, So anyway, the sheriff winds up getting a phone call. It turns out that it's his son Tom, who's, being riddled with guilt about what happened with Barbara, and he's decided he's going to go out and hunt for this coyote. Because as far as he knows, it was a coyote that killed his girlfriend because his father did not clue him into the fact that, no, it's actually a monster. And the sheriff, needless to say, is completely freaked because he doesn't want his son to be, killed by this thing. And Tom's gone out hunting after it, and we hear that whistling in the woods again. As it turns out, the sheriff also knows the way to kill a kahunta is through it can be killed if you drive a silver blade through its heart. And since it's Sam and Dean, they have a silver blade on them, because I wouldn't be surprised if they carried around a thermal detonator in their pocket every once in a while. Yes, that was a Star Wars joke, mentioned in Nerd. So we see Tom throwing out some meat, trying to set a trap, but the problem is, it's more or less a case of who's hunting whom. The kahunta also seems to have his scent as well. We see Tom finding the Parker cabin, and we see the Winchesters and the sheriff, looking for Tom. Tom, winds up at the cabin and getting attacked. He gets attacked by the kahunta, and the sheriff, Sam and Dean show up, and there's this short but extremely, it's a medium-sized and very nasty fight, during which the sheriff gets bitten and Sam gets the living crap beat out of him. Dean manages to get Tom outside, and Dean gets back inside while the kahunta is beating up on Sam, and manages to he shines his light at it and gives us a really good look at this thing, and man, is it ugly. And the flashlight gets its attention, and Dean kind of starts mocking at it, taunting at it, getting it to go to the door. And as it charges at Dean in the doorway, the sheriff is waiting outside, and he stabs the kahunta in the heart with the silver knife, and the kahunta stands there for a minute, it kind of roars in pain for a second, and its arms are up, and we see the fingers starting to melt, and then the whole thing just starts to melt into this puddle of green sludge, and it is really, really, really icky. And we see Sam and Dean kind of nod to each other, and commercial. We come back from commercial, and Tom is strapped to a gurney and being taken into an ambulance, and he asks his father if they got the coyote that killed Barbara, and his father tells him that, yeah, they did. Before Sam and Dean wind up leaving, Sam suggests to the sheriff that he tell Tom the truth about what really killed Barbara and what really attacked him and what they fought in the woods. Dean's not really on board with this idea. You can definitely see it on his face. We cut to the Winchesters driving back to Kansas, and Dean's, driving, and Sam's kind of sitting there, and he's not real happy about the way they left stuff with Jack. And Dean's whole thing is that Jack told him that he was fine. Sam brings up that when they were younger, they would always tell their father they were fine, just so that their father wouldn't have one more thing on his mind. When obviously two young kids being dragged around from state to state while their father's hunting a demon are not going to be fine by anybody's stretch of the word fine. And I am not slamming on John here, so all you John fans, don't write to me and screech at me, because we all know that John tried. We'll go with that. John tried. They get back to the Batcave, and they find Jack sitting at a table reading again, which is pretty much where they left him. And Sam and Dean are actually honest with him, and Dean says that they were, they didn't ask him to come along on this hunt and they wanted him to stay behind because they were concerned about the fact that he's just gotten his powers back and they're not sure how well he's used to using them again and that kind of, that basically he's honest with him that, honest up to a point. We'll go with honest up to a point. But he was clean. He did, he was being factual about the fact that they're worried about the fact that Jack's powers are still, they're new to him again, I suppose is the best way to put it. Little side note, it was actually kind of funny that Jack brought up, I got everything except the beer. And Dean's annoyed that he didn't get the beer. He's like, I didn't have an ID. And Dean's whole thing is, you have a ton of IDs. And Jack's whole response to that is, they're fake. And that brings up this whole discussion about honesty. Jack winds up, Jack tells them that he won't use his powers without permission, and he says that he promises. And Dean says he's going to go off and get some beer after he gives Jack Jack and Sam kind of this semi-dirty look. Not a real mean Dean Winchester, I'm going to kick your butt dirty look, but I'm pouting because I have to go out and get beer look, because there should be beer here and there's not. So Jack's left talking with Sam, and Sam asks him if anything of importance happened while they were gone. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, Jack, please tell him, please, please. Jack tells him nothing happened. Nothing important. And Sam's just kind of like, okay, and gets up and walks to the kitchen, walks to wherever, we don't know. And Jack's left sitting there with his thoughts, knowing that he has just lied to the most important people in his life. And the episode ends. It's very weird to say it this way, but Jack looking concerned that he lied to Sam actually made me feel better. That sounds so strange. Boy, you can definitely tell when the person reviewing this episode is Catholic, because it's all guilt, side order of guilt. Catholics excel at guilt, trust me. And I'm saying that as a Catholic. The fact that Jack looked worried with himself that he lied to Sam tells me that he has more of his soul left than he thinks he does. Because you don't look like that unless you do. We saw Sam without a soul. We saw what that looked like. And I don't want to go through that again. I liked this episode. I know a lot of people have been kind of meh. I give Don't Go in the Woods 4 bouquets out of 5. I liked the fact that, I liked the whole interaction between Jack and the kids. Although I am concerned now these three know about the fact that Jack has powers and they now view Jack as dangerous. If Jack had wiped their memories, I would be a little less concerned. But now there's that little stray thread to think about. And the Winchesters are going to find out something happened, because that's just the way it works in the Winchesters world, that eventually lying does come back to bite you on the butt. The whole thing about the Kahunta was very interesting and scary as heck when we actually got to see the Kahunta itself. I thought that was truly frightening. And I was really happy to see Adam Beach as Sheriff Romero. I am a fan of Adams. I remember him as Detective Chester Lake from Law & Order Special Victims Unit. I really liked him on there. I also remember him from Suicide Squad. You blinked and you missed him, but he played the villain Slipknot, who didn't make it through half of the movie, I think, but he was in it. So he's been a supervillain and now been on Supernatural, so that's pretty neat. This week coming up, Supernatural has a repeat episode. The episode Lebanon will be on. The week after next, Supernatural will be back with a new episode, Game Night. We do know that Anael is back in this episode, so we get to see the beauteous Danielle Ackles again. And we also know that Mark Pellegrino is back in this episode as Nick. Yay. That's not meant as a slam, Mark. I think you're awesome, but Nick is not one of my favorite people right now. We also know at some point in this episode, we do see Sam lying there unconscious with people's hands touching him. So I'm like, okay, so now I have to break out my chainsaw because somebody's just pissed me off. So if you guys want to check out Lebanon again this week, you have a chance, and Supernatural will be back the week after next with a new episode, and I'll be back then as well. Okay, cats and kittens, that's going to wrap things up here for another week on Platinum Rose's Garden. If you would like to contact me, platinumroselle@yahoo.com or Twitter, at platinumroselle@twitter.com. If you'd like to check out my works of fiction, you can check me out on fanfiction.net. I'll look for Platinum Rose Lady in the search engine under authors. And if you'd like to check out the other works that are part of our happy little family, you can check out Subject Cinema, Catastrophe Vortex, 3-Minute Weekend, Tuesday Digidex, Ring Around the Rosie, and also Front Row 5 and 10, which are all our shows that we do, TC and I. And the other members of our family, including Cave Babble with Eric and Valerie, and Aunt B's Nerd Grotto with Anthony Lamberti. And also, if you'd like to like, share, subscribe, tell other people about my show, that would be really awesome. And so that's going to do it for another week. I will be back week after next with a new episode here in Platinum Rose's Garden. So this is Platinum Rose Lady signing off for another week, reminding you to love the ones you hug the ones you love, and take some time to stop and smell the roses. I'll see you around. Bye, guys.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.